All right. So my name is Alex with OnPoint TC. Today is February 9th, 2022. Roughly about 6:10. We have 18 slides to this presentation. Today we'll be talking about risk management and how to use it as a viable tool in sales. It's something that we all have to experience, whether we're investing and or just doing business or advertising for that matter. So that would be today's presentation. Shouldn't last too long. I'm not an attorney or an accountant, but I do like to share. So if you guys like to chime in at any time, you know the drill. Let's go through the bumper stuff. So there's my information. You guys want to call me or email me, please mute yourself if you care to chime in at any time. I mute you guys on my end. But if you guys want to chime in at any time, feel free, and just do me a favor, mute yourself after you're done talking, okay? Just to avoid any background noise, okay? We also do have the chat room. Sally's already taken advantage of that today. Feel free to use the chat room. I'll try to get to your questions directly after each slide. Excuse me. I don't know why I'm so yawning today. Thank you guys for logging in a little bit early. I know we got a late start today, but I don't anticipate going over 7:30 today. Just so you guys know, it's a fairly short presentation today. And then meetings are always open to anybody. You guys feel free to invite anybody that you feel could benefit from any of these meetings. Okay, so thank you for coming. Any questions or comments before we get started? All right, Larry should probably come back here in a second because he was in his car. So today we'll be going over risk and risk management and some other concepts that I feel are important in the real estate business. We'll go over the definition. We'll do a quick funny. With no risk, there is no gain. What do people always say? What is luck or unlucky? And then risk management itself. Okay, so let's start with the definition. Okay, so risk is the potential of gaining or losing something of value. Values such as physical health, social status, emotional well-being, or financial wealth can be gained or lost when taking risk resulting from a given action or inaction, foreseen or unforeseen, planned or not planned. Risk can also be defined as the intentional interaction with uncertainty. Uncertainty is a potential, unpredictable, and uncontrollable outcome. Risk is a consequence of action taken in spite of uncertainty. So there's a definition, the legal definition of it, or shall we say the Webster definition or Wikipedia definition of risk. We can see some platitudes there in terms of, you know, how we deal with our health, our social status, our emotional well-being. Primarily in business, though, we're dealing with our financial wealth and the risk to it, right? So risk perception is a subjective judgment people make about the severity and probability of a risk and may vary person to person. Any human endeavor carries some risk, but some are much riskier than others. So just to understand, anything that we do, anything, it could be as simple as walking down a flight of stairs, carries a risk factor. But if we don't walk down the flight of stairs, we won't make it to the bottom. So we have to take that risk. But I have myself fallen at the bottom of a flight of stairs, and a couple of times, just to give you an example. Any questions or comments on that? All right, so let's keep moving. You guys will start to see the meaning of this as we get closer to the end. So with no risk, there is no gain. So a wise man once said, with no risk, there is no gain. People are so conditioned by their education, by their parents, by society, and by culture that people don't really try and take risks because we're actually conditioned not to. And you know, if you think about it, when we're kids, it's always, you know, when we're kids, it's always parents, you know, parents are telling us, don't do that. You know, you're going to hurt yourself. You know, go to sleep early. You know, don't watch bad things. Don't listen to bad things. Don't say bad things. Right? We're conditioned to not take risks. So here we have a saying here from Marco Robinson: "Without failure, you do not get success." So kind of wrap your head around that for a second. If you only succeed at everything that you do, right? If you only succeed at everything that you do, that would be that you have no failure in life. You have no failure. Now that's not realistic. So to be realistic, in order to have success, you need to have some failures. That's just life. That's just reality. So this is where Marco Robinson has settled his quote. The comment of risk exists. I'm sorry, the component of risk exists in a position of loss or gain and action or inaction. To say that there is no gain without risk can be visualized best by these examples. Try hitting the pins at a bowling alley by not throwing the bowling ball. So that's an inaction. If you don't throw the bowling ball, you will never hit the pins. Try attracting the opposite sex without any form of communication. Or let's just say try attracting a client without any form of communication. That's also an inaction, right? Try growing your portfolio without investing money. If you don't invest, you will never grow your money. Same thing goes that you will never win the lotto if you don't buy a ticket, right? Try gaining clients without talking to them. And that's kind of what I mentioned earlier, right? Which is also a loss. So with no risk, there is no gain. So you have to take the risk of throwing the bowling ball. You have to take the risk of communicating with your clients or somebody maybe that you're attracted to. You have to take the risk of investing your money. And the higher the risk, the higher the gain. As you can see, the inaction or lack of risk does not produce a result. The risk of throwing the ball, attracting a person or client, and or investing your money adds the possible successful result. Any questions or comments on that? All right, moving right along. What do people always say? They always say no. Simply said, most of the time, when we share our thoughts and ideas with others, it is usually met with skepticism, pessimism, or even disdain. The human mind simply rejects new ideas as a protection mechanism. Oddly, it is also one of the most forsakingly acceptable activities. We all don't like it. So none of us like to be told no. But think about how many times you have said no to people, right? So that's kind of the mold, if you will, right? That's the reality of things. Others say it can't be done or it won't work. There's a very logical and clinical explanation for this behavior. It is called a cognitive distorted. Actually, it's cognitive distortion. I don't know why I put distorted there. Oh, I know why, because it's in a sentence. It is a cognitive distorted view of your idea or thought. But I underline cognitive distortion, okay, because that's what they are. Does anybody know of a cognitive distortion? Well, I'm going to share some with you today, okay? In short, the only reason why your idea is clear to you is because you cognitively put it together in your head. Without a thorough outline of your idea to others, it is almost impossible for others to see. Even sometimes the most simplest of ideas can be disagreed upon, which is we experience that on a daily basis. Just trying to communicate some of the simplest things to some of the other agents, sometimes becomes an argument, and really over nothing. It becomes it's really just a trivial thing that you're discussing or talking about, but because the other person has their idea of how it should be, or how it should be drawn out, it becomes an argument. So here's well, I think it's on the next slide. I'll show you some examples of some cognitive distortions. So a common response is that it won't work, it will never happen, or it can't be done. We have all heard it, and oddly enough, we have all seen things happen despite it's being said, right? There's a lot of things. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but there's a lot of things that have happened in life where people just said it just couldn't be done, right? So this is where once we understand that we've been conditioned to say no, we've been conditioned to be skeptical or pessimistic, right? That if we could just unpeel that layer, kind of like an onion of each person that we're talking to, understanding that they're conditioned to say no, your ability now to now take that layer off of that onion and read a little bit more into it, maybe explain a little bit better and understand a little bit more, will give you the ability to possibly turn that no into a maybe, and then that maybe into a yes. And that's actually what you're looking for. Thank you, Robert. So of course, they do come off as pessimistic. So I want to know what you guys think, okay? So a quick pop quiz, okay? What could be some more things that would strengthen the idea of no risk, no gain? So I use the example, oh, I don't think I did use an example of no risk, no gain. Well, what could be an example of with no risk, there's no gain? Oh, well, I used the example of investing. Okay, so let's say the stock market, right? So that's an obvious example, right? We all sell property, and all of us, some of us, and we talk to people all the time. I'm assuming that's Robert saying that, right? Sully, I don't think he said that, but Robert said it. Asking your crush, yeah, Robert. Asking your crush on a date, yeah, for sure, man. I'll tell you what, that's probably the best example, mainly because for guys, okay, and I know women think guys are all machismo and this and that, right? But I think for guys, it's kind of a frightful thing, especially when you're coming out of adolescence, to ask a girl on a date, because it's almost it's a form of terror when if she says no, right? There's some terror involved in that. So we like to think of that. So without taking the risk of even asking, you're not going to gain that yes response, and it becomes now your job to, in terms of the way that you ask, right? To really try and get the yes as well. Okay, so let's move on to the next question. Have any of you experienced an idea whereas most said it could not be done, and yet the project was completed? Anybody experience something like that? If I remember correctly, I think the Golden Gate Bridge, I think, was something that a lot of people, there was a lot of pessimists, a lot of skepticism that it would never be able to get built. And I think that and, oh yeah, it's being shared. I didn't see the frame around the screen there. You guys can see the screen, right? But I think the Golden Gate Bridge, I think was one of the things that they talked about, that it could never get done. The other thing I kind of remember seeing a documentary on the water tunnel in New York, that was never going to get completed, and there was a lot of skepticism in the news and what have you concerning that. So that was something that that I remember. But you guys haven't experienced anything like that? Let's move on to the next one. Can anyone tell the class what cognitive distortions apply to the no response from others? And I know we haven't talked about cognitive distortions, but I just kind of wanted to plant the seed with you guys in terms of what cognitive distortions are. And I'll just kind of give you just kind of a quick overview. The word cognitive means to be able to think, or the ability to think, right? And then distortions are something that you are things that really, when something is distorted, it's not clear, or it's not smooth, or it's not in focus, right? So when you add those two words together, cognitive distortion simply means that your cognitive ability to think has been distorted. And understanding that we all have cognitive distortions, this is a psychological the way psychologists look at people, they are kind of rating what cognitive distortions your personality has latched onto. So we all have them, and then we start to realize, once you start seeing what they are, you start to realize that you can kind of rise above them a bit and not let them control your emotions, or not let them control your life, right? So here's some examples, okay? So filtering is a cognitive distortion. We probably have all experienced polarized thinking. Polarized thinking is simply thinking on both sides of the spectrum. Overgeneralization, I think we all do. Overgeneralizing means is that if something happens to you one time, it then becomes the rule. It's kind of like if you happen to get in a plane crash, or that's probably too extreme. If you happen to get in a car crash and you never get in a car again because you've overgeneralized that the next time you jump in the car, it's going to crash. You've made that one experience the rule, and now you've overgeneralized it, right? Another good one is global labeling, right? We see a person walking down the street, and we label them a certain way, right? And the possibility of them being what you're thinking is probably very slim. So we have labeled that person to be something that maybe they're not. That's global labeling. That is in the world of cognitive distortions. That is a distorted way of thinking. So I just kind of wanted to expose that a bit, because that does get into the psychology of what we experience with others, and because we're working with buyers and sellers most of the time. A lot of times we're working with comrades like agents or brokers, title folks, escrow people, all that good stuff, and they're all affected by these things, right? So these are I think there's 15 or 17 cognitive distortions. You're welcome to look them up on Google and look at the definitions. Pretty interesting stuff. But if you delve into that world, you will then see how and why the people act the way they do around you. And if you understand that, sometimes it's easier to explain your position, if you will, because you're kind of understanding where they're coming from, right? We're certainly not trying to psychoanalyze them, but we're trying to recognize what's happening in our situation, right? So any questions or comments on that? And I said just to name a few, because like I said, there's probably 15 or 17 cognitive distortions. So what is lucky or unlucky? And we've all seen these here, right? Good luck, bad luck, hard luck, feeling lucky, lucky break, lucky stars, lucky charm. The list goes on, right? So a wise man once said, luck is when preparation meets opportunity. And you guys, that if there's any nugget you're going to take from this course today, this is the nugget. Okay, luck is when preparation meets opportunity. In this view, being lucky or unlucky is simply a descriptive label that points out an event's positive or positivity, negativity, or improbability. Supernatural interpretations of luck consider it to be an attribute of a person or object, or the result of a favorable or unfavorable view of a deity upon a person. So a lot of us think of luck as being something that's God sent. Oh my God, I'm so lucky because God must love me because I just had some good successful experience, right? When in reality, it was part of it was simply just the circumstance, right? And your preparation had met the opportunity. So the concept of luck is still kind of, oh, got somebody logging on. Mr. Larry's logging in. The concept of luck is simply a descriptive label. But if you guys are going to take a nugget away from today of anything, luck is when preparation meets opportunity. So if you think about it, and I'll give you a quick example. This is an example that I usually use. Let's say that you're into Corvettes, right? And some guys, pretty much hard on his luck, and he's selling a Corvette. It's probably worth about 20 grand. He's selling it for 5 grand, right? So it's going to sell quickly, right? And you just happen to have the $5,000 to purchase it. Now, you may not even like Corvettes, but you could probably turn around and sell it for much more. So the idea is and I'll just use myself as an example, is that I had prepared myself for that opportunity. So I was lucky. Most would say, oh, wow, you're pretty lucky. Well, I had prepared myself for that opportunity. Luck is when preparation meets opportunity. In short, luck is what you get after it happens. As the saying goes, hindsight's 20/20. Right? So that said, any questions or comments on that one? All right, let's keep moving. Let's do a quick funny. This one kind of speaks for itself. Oh man, I'll tell you, some listings look like this, don't they? I thought that was good. It's funny because I'm sitting here laughing by myself, and I'm hoping that you guys back there muted behind the scenes are laughing as well, because that's some funny stuff. So let's go over a quick overview now of what we'll be going over to in here in risk in terms of more explanation. It can be managed and identified to try and minimize and maximize your luck or success. So this is something that we can control, right? So we can analyze it. What does it take to meet your goals? Identify it. Once you know what you need, do something to remember it. Action, do frequently. We talked about rituals. What you have identified helps you meet your goal, right? We talked about rituals some weeks back. Monitor, recognize your success and record them for later review. And control. Once success has been realized, control your time and repeat them. And a lot of us do that. We do that a lot. We find our successes and the things that pretty much make us feel good, right? And we just keep doing them over and over and over. That's pretty much why we get out of bed in the morning, right? Any questions or comments on the overview? All right, so let's put it to work. What does it take to meet your goals, right? We're analyzing. In real estate, choose a specialty. Let's say it's attorneys, probate, or trust work. How many attorneys and paralegals must I visit each week? What events can I visit? Or organizations can I join to meet these professionals? Can I go to the court and find clients directly? If so, what do I do at that court? So this is what we're analyzing. So the first thing to do is pick a specialty. Kind of like being a doctor, right? You have foot doctors, you have dentists, you have you know, heart doctors, liver doctors. The list goes on. What is it? Eye, nose, and ear doctors, something like that. So the idea is to first pick a specialty. The next thing you do is then analyze, right, what you need to do in order to prosper in that specialty. So next thing we do is identify. Once you know what you need to do, write it down. I can now make a list of attorneys I have visited and make follow-up appointments. I've been invited to paralegal association meetings here locally. I found that the court here in town has also new cases filed for divorce, probate, and trust administration in order of date. So now I have now found some resources, and I've identified those things. Now, again, I'm using attorneys as an example here because this is something that I have personally experienced in real estate, right? So this is why I'm using it as an example. I probably have 3 or 4 other examples. So understand that I'm not telling you to go after attorneys. What I'm suggesting is that was simply just one of my choices, okay? And what I'm suggesting is that you find your own specialty, right? So any questions or comments on that? So I was able to analyze and identify, okay? So now we're moving on to action. Do frequently what you have identified helps you meet your goal. And if you realize everything that we're talking about here, there's always a risk involved in all of this. So this is why this presentation was headed as risk. In other words, that's the main course, if you will. Do what you have to do is what we perceive as the risk. If you do it and it does, excuse me, if it does not produce a result, it seemingly has no value. This is where the tire meets the pavement, so to speak. If you realize that not all efforts produce results, and results are only realized a fraction of the time, one must then deduce that both are required to achieve success. You cannot achieve results 100% of the time. That would not be real, right? So the idea is literally to take action. You've now analyzed what your specialty is going to be. You've identified what you need to do in order to do it, and now take action and do it frequently, do it routinely, do it ritualistically. That's what we've talked about numerous times, right? But understand that in that action, okay, and this is where the risk comes, is that you're sometimes not always going to be successful. You can't be successful 100% of the time, right? If you were successful 100% of the time, it wouldn't be called success. It would just be the norm. But in the norm, you're going to have failures. So within those failures, you're going to have some successes. So whereas to your need to take action. So now let's move on to monitor. Recognize your success and record them for later review. Once you have taken the action, despite what happens, and continue the effort, it is with 100% certainty that at some point there will be results of success. You will recognize, realize, and enjoy the success, which allows you to review how it was achieved and possibly concrete on the action it took to reduce both the risk factor and time spent. And I said concrete, the word is concentrate. Let me read that again. Allows you to review how it was achieved and possibly concentrate on the action it took to produce both the risk factor and time spent. And I apologize. I read this like 3 or 4 times before doing this today, just because I update it and then I add slides and do that kind of stuff. And I don't know why sometimes I get little Freudian slips, so my apologies. But so now we've taken action in what it is that we've analyzed and identified, right? And now we're monitoring what we're doing, and we're kind of focusing now on getting it done often, but we're kind of monitoring our successes. And the things that work, we just do more often, and the things that don't work, we do less often. So it's simply not suggesting just to hit your head on the pavement constantly if it's not working, right? We got to stop doing that, right? Any questions or comments on that? So we're on slide 12, we're 641. We're actually doing pretty good time. So let's move on to control. Once success have been realized, control your time and repeat them. As an example of the attorneys and paralegals, once you realize it produces results, you can research further on becoming a proficient and knowledgeable agent about the specific subject matter. Sometimes your board may have specific certifications or designations that can be achieved. Once you get your credentials, marketing yourself has evolved from a simple inquiry to a position of legitimacy. Your target choices become an industry segment that will soon be known to occupy. You will soon be known to occupy. At some point, the market would be seeking you. How is that for risk management? So you've taken what a lot of people would say, oh, you know, that doesn't work. You know, I tried it. You know, we talked about this, the pessimistic view of things and how we're kind of conditioned to kind of take that view, right? But you know what? A lot of us we're individuals, and we have made a choice on what it is that we're going to do. So the idea is to put your nose to the grindstone. And as the saying goes, right, is that you are going to focus on what your choice was, what your career choice was, right? You're going to identify it. You're going to act on it. You're going to analyze it, right? And then once you see that you have some successes, okay, you can continue to grow. And what you want to grow is your legitimacy. Legitimacy in terms of your certifications, in terms of your knowledge, in terms of how many people you know in the industry, in terms of how much marketing you do about that, where people will then know, hey, you know what? The person that I'm going to go to is you, because you took the time to do all that stuff. And we all know people in the community like that. We know restaurants like that. We know mechanics like that. We know attorneys like that, right? We know realtors like that, right? Because those people did exactly that. And that's why they're successful in what it is that they're doing. They took the time to, first of all, choose something, act on it, analyze it. Maybe it wasn't so technical, but it was, you know, it was front of mind, right? And then controlling it by simply just lifting your education, lifting your wisdom, lifting your knowledge. Does that make sense, guys? Any questions or comments on that? And the reason why I had made this presentation originally is because I noticed that a lot of agents, they're kind of scattered out. You know, you see an agent one day, he's working with attorneys. The next day, he's probably doing property management. You know, the following week, he's doing short sales. The following, you know, and I can just keep going on and on, you know, where they're just kind of scattered all over. I don't recommend that. I know that a lot of us sometimes have to do some of those things because of the financial situation. I get it, but you should always have a pinnacle. In other words, what are you really focusing on, right? You should always have that focus on what it is that you're working on. And this is now becomes in your mind, becomes risk management, because you're taking the risk of focusing on one thing. And if you listen to successful people, and I've heard Tyler Perry say this, I've heard Will Smith say this, right? Is a focus on one thing and read about it. And if you read everything about that particular thing, you then start becoming that, right? Look at Tyler Perry. You know, his movies aren't the greatest, but he does a lot of them and he makes a lot of money. I would say that that's successful. And that was his formula, right? He simply focused on one particular thing. Well, that was kind of a risk, wasn't it? That was a risk for him to just do one thing or think about one thing. But it paid off. So just something to think about in terms of control, right? Any questions or comments on that? All right, so moving on to what it takes. And this was an added slide. This wasn't on the previous presentation, but I thought it important because as I was reading through this, I noticed that it was missing. So I added this. So a new little nugget for you guys. Okay, so courage. What you get after you do that one difficult thing you didn't want to do. It's courage. It's what you get after you do it. The ability to do something that you know is difficult or dangerous. And that is the actual definition, if you look at Wikipedia, right? The ability to do something that you know is difficult or dangerous. And I don't know why I got danger on there. I got to spell check myself. It takes courage to take a risk. So yes, it does take courage. But if you think about it, what I just said there, that courage is what you get after you do it. I mean, it sounds a little backwards because the majority of us say, oh, well, no, I'm a little afraid to do that. I'm a little afraid to, to approach something or somebody. Robert had talked about asking your crush out on a date, right? But if you think about the courage itself, it's that really good feeling that you get after you've succeeded at something. And then all of a sudden, wow, you feel like $1,000,000, right? And that's what I'm talking about. That's the courage, right? Understanding that most of us look at courage as being something that you have before you try that dangerous thing or difficult thing, right? Well, I guess it could be both, but for the most part, if you visualize it as the thing that you get after you try something difficult, it's some perspective, okay? We view those who take risk as fearless or invulnerable. This is simply not true. They are as vulnerable of loss as you. The true power comes in the want and or need to succeed at the things that are truly not a risk. So those are those cognitive distortions that I was talking about that are kind of playing with your head. Also the things that we've been conditioned to believe. It's always, no, don't do that. Be careful. Don't run. Don't do certain things. We've been conditioned. Now, I'm not saying to go crazy. I'm certainly not suggesting that. Don't go nuts, okay? We're trying to manage our risk within reason, okay? But I'll read this sentence again. The true power comes in the want or need to succeed at the things that are truly not a risk, meaning that they weren't a risk to begin with. Some of the things that we think about aren't even really a risk, but we hold ourselves back nevertheless. Those things are simply perceived as a risk, but are more complacency, and we talked about complacency some weeks ago, lack of depth perception, and misgauging energy or laziness. And I thought this picture that's down here of this guy jumping the canyon there, from one side to the other was a good example. Because you might find some people that say, oh no, I'm not going to jump that because I might fall. That's complacency, right? Or I'm not going to do it, right? Their lack of depth perception, meaning that they're kind of looking at it and they're thinking, oh, you know what? I ain't going to make it. That's depth perception, right? Or misgauging their energy or laziness. And that's where, I just don't have the energy to jump it. Well, this is the action that I'm talking about, and this is the courage that I'm talking about. Because once that guy lands on that rock and it looks like he's going to do it, right? He feels good about himself. And that's where the courage comes in. And so Robert Sully said something, some risk doesn't come with reward. And actually, Robert, I would beg to differ with you, or Sully, right? There isn't anything there isn't any risk that doesn't come without a reward. Otherwise, it wouldn't be called a risk. Maybe what you're saying is that there's some things that come without a reward, right? But when you say some risk doesn't come with reward, I would beg to differ, because then it wouldn't be a risk. If there's no reward to be had, then there is no risk involved. And so, any other questions or comments? And Robert Sully, simply my opinion, okay? I don't like to talk about things in terms of wrong or right. It's just my opinion. So I don't know, give me an example of what you mean, and maybe it'll change my mind, right? I certainly don't know everything. And I'll say this again, we're not an attorney or an accountant, because then maybe I would. Kind of funny. But anyway, that said, we're on tile 14, so we're actually doing pretty good. Coming up at 6:52 now, okay? Any questions or comments on courage? I thought that was a good perspective, way of looking at it, right? So, oh, we're at final thoughts already. Understanding that our real only risk is rejection, which is no risk at all. Rejection is actually required to produce results. Most other risks lie in the effort of spending on advertising and the risk of its effectiveness. Again, really not a risk, as there's no risk in exposure. If we are prepared to receive success, we can consider ourselves lucky, but certainly feel unlucky if we can't close a transaction. So in the slow times, prepare yourself for the busy times and consider yourself lucky when you are prepared. So play with words there, but it kind of goes along with what I was saying earlier on some of the slides. Once you take action on what it is you mean to do, it is only a matter of time that it produces results. Any risk you attempt to stomach in the end will only make you more of a risk taker and more callous to rejection. We must pose ourselves the question of risk and wonder, what do I have to lose? And that's probably the biggest nugget that we can take away today on this presentation, is what do we have to lose? Try and tell yourself that if you're feeling a little shaky about asking your crush out on a date, or if you're feeling a little shaky about doing some advertising, or you're feeling a little shaky about putting your signs out, or approaching somebody in a business that you've been thinking about approaching, or just handing your business card to a waitress or a waiter that was nice to you. You have absolutely nothing to lose. And at the end of the day, is that really a risk? Actually, there's no risk at all to exposure. So in terms of risk management, that's the biggest nugget. There is no risk in exposure. Expose yourself to what it is that you do to others as much as you can. That should be a ritual. And if you pick a subject matter and focus on it, right? This actually will be your success story, because that formula has worked for eons. And you'll hear any motivational speaker talk about action, about focusing, about taking risks, right? And when we talk about, mainly what we're talking about here in terms of taking risks is literally just exposure. So think about it. What do you have to lose? Repeat that to yourself every morning. What do I have to lose? Right? Any questions or comments on that? All right, well, looks like did pretty good on time. There's my information, guys. This is the slide about the YouTube channel. If you guys are interested in viewing previous recorded presentations, please visit the YouTube channel and do me a favor and subscribe if and when you get a chance, okay? The link, obviously, you can't click on it here on this presentation. There's the link. But it is at the very bottom of the emails that I send out every week as an invite for this presentation, okay? And the link will be there. You guys are welcome to share that link with whomever you like. Just do me a favor and please have them subscribe to the YouTube channel, okay? It actually helps out my efforts in terms of getting this stuff out there. And, you know, it's good information. I like this stuff. I know some of it's a little boring, but most of the time when I do these classes, I walk out kind of, you know, pumped up and excited, you know, for myself. And I'm hoping that you guys are getting the same feeling or sensation, because it you know, it opens up, you know, your thinking juices, your creative juices to think about, you know, what it is that we're doing and how we're doing it. And, you know, if you ever find yourself sitting down at the computer and you don't know what to do, you know, you can get into some of these concepts and it'll keep you busy. It'll keep you busy. That's the idea, keeping you busy. You want to make your day rituals. You have to be consistent. Remember, consistency is the key. So any questions or comments on that? So there's Mr. Larry's information. Mr. Larry is on with us almost every week. And there's his phone number, email address, if you guys should have any questions or comments, or need help with a lot of things. Larry's a wealth of knowledge that he can help you with. So feel free to give him a call. There's Miss Elizabeth Montes information if you guys should ever need a loan approval, FHA VA conventional, FHA VA conventional. She can help you with loan approvals as well as actually closing the deal. And I know she's been closing deals usually within 25 days. So a very good resource to come with. She's been in the business now over 15 years. And she's also the broker and the escrow office here as well. Mr. David Plummering's got his Saturday morning presentation. He is a real estate trainer and he does his free stuff on Saturdays. Feel free to log on. There's his information. Take a picture of it if you need it. And then obviously there's Shameen. If you have any questions or comments on NHD stuff, she's with Property ID and she'll be more than happy to help with that, okay? Any questions or comments thus far? All right, well, we're at the end of our presentation, guys. Like I said, this one was gonna be short and sweet, but very conceptual. The word of the day today is cognitive distortions. If you guys take the time to just Google cognitive distortions, there is a lot of stuff there that will open your mind. Now, the thing that I always kind of relate it to is The Matrix. Lawrence Fishburne, I think his name was, along with Keanu Reeves. Lawrence Fishburne held out a blue pill and a red pill, and he told them, hey, if you want to go back to your normal life, take the red pill. And well, I don't remember which one it is, so just bear with me. But if you want to know the reality of life, take the blue pill, right? Well, Keanu Reeves in The Matrix, he took the blue pill, and then he found out that his mind was being controlled by a computer, right? So I'm just kind of throwing it out there, the warning sign that when you start getting into psychology of things, that is possibly what could happen if you start reading some of this stuff. Because what happens is you start to realize what's happening with the people around you, not just the people you're working with. And sometimes that could be, I don't know if the word dangerous is the right word, but it could be disheartening at times, because you start to realize some of the people that are around you, they're cognitive distortions. And so I'm not a psychologist, I'm not an attorney, I'm not an accountant. I'm just sharing this with you guys. This is something that exists, and if you guys are interested into looking into the psychology of what's happening with a lot of people, anybody who has worked with me on a transaction, this is why I have the demeanor that I do with a lot of things, because I know and understand and it's mainly because I minored in psychology in college, okay, about cognitive distortions. So just something to think about, okay, guys? So if there's anything else, you guys are welcome to unmute. You guys have any questions, comments? If not, I'll be ready to log off here real quick. And thank you. Well, actually, they logged off already, but thank you guys for coming on. I'll see you guys next week. I'm probably going to be doing expired listings next week, which is a little bit of a live presentation. I have to go over it. If I do need to revamp it a bit, because I noticed there were some changes in MLS, then I'll do a different one. But I'm gearing towards doing the expired listings. Okay. So that said, guys, you guys have a good night. Again, I'm not an attorney or accountant, but I do like to share. And so you guys are welcome to take everything that I say with a grain of salt. Please do your own research. And if you should have any questions or anything, feel free to call or email. If you would like to change my mind on anything, hey, I'm all ears, guys. I don't pretend to know everything. I just like to share my knowledge and wisdom. Matter of fact, this month will be my 33rd year in real estate in some capacity. Because when I say real estate, I wasn't an agent the entire time. So 33 years this month. So not something that I could say I was crazily successful at, but there is a lot of things that I talk about that if you make part of your ritualistic day, right, that you can be successful at. So so you guys go and have a great end of the week and weekend. Hopefully you guys are fans of football, because there will be football this Sunday at 3:30 at SoFi Stadium, which is here locally, which is nice. And also a local team, the Rams. So if you guys are into that, hope you guys will enjoy that. Other than that, guys, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. I'll see you guys next week, okay?
Thanks, Alex.
All right,
Appreciate
Mr. Ray, thank you.
Enjoy.